And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage. And you're joining us on the podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is Corbin Ball. Corbin is an international speaker, consultant, and a writer helping clients worldwide use technology to save time and improve productivity. After 18 years running international citywide technology meetings, Corbin transitioned in 1997 to become a highly acclaimed speaker with the ability to make complex subjects understandable and fun. He has articles that have appeared all over into US News and World Report, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and he's gracing us with his presence today. So welcome aboard, Corbin. Thanks for coming on board.
Hi, Peter. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thanks. So it's been 18 years, right? Or no, 1997. No, 22 years since you sort of made the move, right? So it's been quite some time.
It has been.
So if there's someone out there now that's where you were 22 years ago, what might you advise them?
I think that first of all, in a speaking career, you need to have a passion about what you're talking about that you can't not talk about it in some ways. You need to find a profitable subject to speak about, but once you've done that, once there's a demand, then go for it. I mean, I think that I look back and that was to form my own business is the best professional decision I've ever made. It's been a fun time and it has worked well.
So let me, I mean, two key points that you made there, find something that you're passionate about, and then you sort of threw it in quickly and make sure there's demand for it, right? Because if you're passionate about something that there's no market for, that might be a lot of fun, but you might be very broke. So how do you calibrate those two? How do you test demand for something that aligns with who you are and what you want to focus on?
For me, I was the first person to go out. I have a fairly narrow target niche. It's people in the events and hospitality industry, and so I was the first person to do it. So I didn't know if it was going to work or not. But I felt that this is back. I started before Google started, and so it was early in the game in terms of how technology was going to change things. And so it's a and I felt that there would be a demand. I knew that there were a lot of people grappling with it. I've been involved in professional associations and been doing speaking not on a professional basis, but doing a little speaking before that. I knew there was a demand, and I took it from there.
Okay, so in your case, you knew the industry, you knew the space well. You had an inkling that there was a demand for this, right? So it seemed fairly straightforward. Talk a little bit about speaking as a business, and I think what happens is when people start to think about, "Ooh, I'd like to be a speaker," they're not thinking about it from the business standpoint. They're thinking about it from a, "Hey, I'm a good speaker. I've been told I'm a good communicator. It would be fun to travel to different places and talk about my message." They talk more about or they think or and such more about the craft, but they don't think about all the other, the 95% of time where a speaker's not on stage, the things that they need to be doing. Could you take us behind the scenes a little bit about that other 95% of a speaker's universe?
Sure. It's for me. I right from the start, I felt that when you do that, you start to have to set up. How are you going to promote yourself? How are you going to get your name out there? And so for me, I felt that I would start to. I was doing writing. I was writing articles. That's a great way of in writing. I wrote a couple of books, and it was when you write a book on a topic, you become the kind of de facto expert on it in a way. But writing and seeking out the business journals within your niche, they're usually always looking for well-written articles. And so, and what I would do is, in my case, after doing that a little bit, I was able to charge for my articles, but I kept retained the copyright. And so essentially I had a number of magazines paying me to add content to my website and to my newsletter. And so that was a real part of that process is the promotion of what you're doing, I think, is a key part, and getting your name out there as the expert in this particular topic by writing articles, writing a book, is a very helpful way to do it.
Two things there is, the writing and the consistent writing, not just, hey, one off, I did an article, 3 years ago, April or something, but consistently writing, consistently getting out in front of the audience that matters to you is number one. And then the focus, right? So I would imagine, but correct me if I'm wrong, that when people start to see your name earlier on, oh, this who's this Corbin guy, right? They know at least thematically or within a range of the things they can expect to hear from you. And you're not, willy nilly doing a restaurant review one day and hospitality the next and whatnot. Is that true?
Yeah, that's very true. I think that niche marketing, at least for speakers, I think that that's a very effective way. We've got to some way stand out. For example, if you're talking about how to better improve sales, there
Yep.
are thousands of speakers out there that talk about that, and so narrowing it down to a specific niche, I found was really helpful, and doing that in that way worked for me.
Got it. And it also sounds like there's a bit of a flywheel effect where the book, the articles that you're keeping the copyright on leads to books. And then I'm assuming that ultimately it's a way of credentializing yourself. If I'm looking for someone in your space, your name's going to bubble up to the top either organically on search. You could back it up and say, here's 100 articles I've written. Talk a little bit about how it gets easier the longer you've been doing it.
Content is key, and people are looking online for content. And if you can provide that, and then if you have a lot of content, and you come to the top of the search engines, which really helps with that. So yeah, that was a beneficial. That was the route that I decided. I built a website. I started a newsletter about a year after, the same month that Google started. Actually, I started my newsletter to regularly get out in front of people, and that grew to about 11,000 subscriber base of about 11,000,
Yep.
which is good. And then when you have a really narrow target niche, and invariably my newsletter would go out, and I get two or three calls. I'd send it out. I wanted to put it out at a frequency that it was enough for me to handle, and yet and also not to overload people's inboxes as well. And so I decided I'd do that for 6 times a year.
Okay.
And so it's enough to just kind of be regularly there, but enough that I could create a couple of articles and other things during that time. And so it was that regular basis of being in front of people, writing that content, and getting out there. It really helped me in terms of how I was became recognized in the industry.
Got it. If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership, please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcast and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcasts. So, question for you. So, it seems to me, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, that your default is you're a writer, right? You write articles, you write books. That's one way for you to create content. What, if anything, have you done to dabble in the other mediums? I'm specifically talking about sort of that transition to social media, because it's not so easy to go from someone that writes 1,000-word articles to being seen or differentiated on the various platforms that have their own rules and cadences and styles and all that. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, the social media is invaluable. I was active, became active right from the start. I mean, pretty soon after they opened on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, were my major players. Some on Pinterest, some on Instagram, just to kind of be in those different channels as well. But my key ones were Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and I have substantial, carefully curated LinkedIn network with that, and so I'm careful not to. I get requests regularly, but I'm careful to make sure that they have some connection to what I'm doing with that, and but it's many thousands, 10,000 or more, and 16,000 on Twitter, and so, having that as a broadcast channel, I think, and letting people know what you're doing, your new articles, new things that you've come across, is an invaluable. And the one thing I also made a commitment when I started doing Twitter is that I would have at least one or two tweets every day. Keep the content fresh and continually growing, and the channels grew, and that's also been a very helpful way of getting the word out.
So, are there, I guess, sort of two questions. One is, what is it that you've had to do to get comfortable in these other mediums? Number one, and then number two, sort of, how do you know that your target? Because I mean, you talked about the niche and the target of the audience, that they're actually on, which of these platforms they're involved in as well. Because if you're start to go crazy on Instagram, but none of your followers are on Instagram, you might be doing it really, really well, but to no avail.
That's correct. I mean, I think that you judge it by the responses you get, the interactivity, the follows, the request to connect, all those things. You judge it by what benefit you're getting. I played around on those other channels just to be familiar with them. Really, I haven't put them in as a major focus because that's true. I didn't see the return on that investment of time in some of those channels, and it really does vary from audience to audience with that as well. I mean, if you are, there are age variances, there are gender variances on a number of these areas, and so understanding those and finding out what works for you, I think, is the way to go.
Got it. You talked about books pretty briefly earlier. Do you want to just give us an overview of what you've seen, what's changed, what's working, what's not? I mean, it's a big topic, but I always like to get people's input that are, have firsthand experience.
Yeah, and the challenge was for me for writing books, and I've written three ones on event technology and what's happening, what are the new things there. The challenge is for a technology speaker, it's not very evergreen. Things are changing so fast in terms of technology that it's last year's articles have become out of date, and let alone, and so you don't have a long shelf life, and that's why fairly early. I wrote those fairly early in the game, and I have since transitioned more to writing articles, writing for different publications, because it's just the nature of the game. It's what I'm talking about today, and the hot new trends right now are going to be old news in a year, and so that's where I've gone. I've watched it over the time, and it's certainly the transition to digital has been very significant, but I have not really intimately been involved in
Got
it.
it. Let's transition to speaking for a little bit. So, when your business model is primarily the monetization of the content is primarily on the speaking side, or let's first calibrate there.
Yeah, I would say that the over the years, it's been my income stream has been 50, 40, 10 speaking, consulting, and writing. And so the writing is I mean, I get paid for it, and I get sponsorships from my newsletters and so for that. So there's an income stream there, but the emphasis was more on getting my name and message out, and just helping people. Actually, is to help people confront the technology issues in my industry. But the emphasis was really to get the word out and provide content so that the other two legs of my income stream would be supported. If you're writing, you become the expert, then they want you to speak about it, and then they also want you to consult
Yep.
with them as well. So that's worked out.
Tell us a little bit about the sort of select criteria. You're invited to speak somewhere. How much of your decision to speak is determined on, is it on the fee side versus other opportunities and such? Can you give us some insight there?
Yeah, sure. It's been a little bit of both. There are, in fact, there are a few times each year. I'll do a presentation for no fee at all if I feel that it's a good connection for that. Usually, that would typically have been my home association at Meeting Professionals International and other organizations
Yep.
that I would do that. But it's a matter of there are times where visibility is really good, but most of the time I'd have a speaking fee, and they call me up and they say, "How much is it?" I actually have it on my website, and so it's just I try to answer all the questions I can at my website before they ever have to ask them, even. And
Yeah.
so uh, and then it's just a matter then if I'm available on those dates. And I do a lot of international speaking. I usually speak 5 or 6 different countries a year, and I have a new country. I've been to 97 countries, but I have a new country discount. If I've not been to a country before, spoken in a country, I will do. I'll work a very good deal to get there because it feeds my travel habit, which I have enjoyed a lot over the years.
But I would say if you've been to 97, unless there's like the Antarctic Travel Association, the odds aren't that great that you'll find the 98 so soon. But that's why I guess that's why there's a discount.
Of those, it's 35 of those countries are actually been there on speaking engagements. But this last summer I spoke in Borneo, so
Oh,
that was
wow.
one that worked out well. So yeah,
Very cool. So, as we start to wrap up here, any final words of wisdom in terms of things people should consider, or do more of, or do less of? Any further insight?
I found this has been for me an extremely rewarding career. I have loved what I'm doing. It's not like work. I see the world with my job. I get treated well as a speaker, and I get a chance to help people. And that combination makes for a really fun and interesting career. It's I would if people if you find an area that you're passionate about, I would recommend it if you can find it that will work out financially. But those things you do that, I'd certainly recommend it. It's been a great time for me.
Well, fantastic. I appreciate all your wisdom and sharing all that with us today. And there's a lot here to unpack and process for everybody. So thank you so much for joining us today, Corbin. I appreciate it.
Happy to, Peter. Talk to you later.
Thanks. To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.